Welcome to Changepreneurs podcast, where conversations spark change. I'm your host Roshni, and with me is Pushkar Vaidya. We are joined by someone who has walked the corridors of global finance as a leader and now walks alongside individuals on their journey of growth. Nikhil Damle. He's an
Hello.
ex He's an executive coach, internationally certified NLP trainer, and a former Morgan Stanley leader with over 20 years of experience in finance and technology. Today, he's the founder of Iridium Coaching and Learning, a center where he blends powerful tools like NLP, Gestalt, and transactional analysis to spark meaningful everyday transformation. Nikhil is deeply passionate about enabling authentic leadership and driving change from the inside out. Welcome to the Changepreneurs, Nikhil. It's a privilege
Thank
to
you.
have you on the show.
Likewise.
Welcome, Nikhil.
Thank you. Thank you, Pushkar.
So,
Lovely being here.
Nikhil, take us back to your early days. If we met you in your first job, what kind of a person or a professional would we see? And how different are you today?
Wow. First job, probably very raw. Didn't know my way around. I think the only thing that I probably knew was something after MBA, is going to unfold for me. So I was kind of pretty much on that track. Uh, Often, it's like as children, we say, what do you want to become? And someone says bus driver, and later on, we don't know what they become. I didn't have anything like that. I used to love playing cricket. I loved food. Generally, my idea was that wherever the sort of, management education takes me is where I want to be. Um, so it was still the beginning of that career. And then I would kind of wonder that, initially looks like these roles, so my initial days were in research. I used to be an industry analyst, so reading through a lot of news. In a sense, it felt like extension of education. It felt like I'm just doing some more MBA projects, but this time I'm getting paid to do it. So the initial part of the career felt like that. I think some amount of awareness probably sort of started happening once I joined Morgan Stanley, because uh, there it was a different kind of a world, a global firm setting up operations in Mumbai that time. I was one of the first 25 employees in. Now we have this term GCC, so that is what it was at the equivalent of it that time. Uh, and often we didn't know each other, amongst ourselves also. We didn't know what kind of operation is this going to be, right? We are not frontline, but we are sort of being told we are in critical roles. So it felt a little bit like, you figure out along with the way as you go, and how things will turn out, we'll see after some time. Uh, I ended up staying there for a pretty long time. So, must be some things must have gone right along the way there. But I think what resonated for me was the kind of people that I found myself in the company of, um, and how much did kind of, problem solving opportunities arise, right? So, on one occasion, it would be leading a function, on some other occasion, it would be some special project. So, I guess that common thing was that there was some variety available. I think that's what made me end up staying there. So I could do many different things in work, and I could certainly, it gave me a chance to do many things outside of work as well. That probably, maybe, if I can link it back to college and school, probably that's the common thread that I can think of, that probably there was a variety on offer.
So, Nikhil, one thing that stood out for me here is that in the job with Morgan Stanley, especially, I would say that there's a lot of ambiguity in your initial days, because even the concept of now what we call GCC, but that time I guess it was offshore center, PPO call center. I mean,
We used
that
to call ourselves GKC, Global Knowledge Center.
GKC.
So it was
This
a
is the first
different.
time I'm hearing of that, by the way.
So I'll tell you,
So,
then that became captives. Then somebody said captive sounds very outrageous. So then it became in-house centers, and then
yeah,
probably it became global in-house centers, and now today global
it's GCC.
capability centers. Right? So
Yeah.
that's probably the way it's evolved.
Correct. So, with that amount of ambiguity around you at that time, because everything was new, I guess, right? Because even the concept of a captive GCC, whatever we choose to call it, was new.
That's correct.
So, if today I was somebody who has got a job with a captive or a GCC which is being set up, what
Yeah.
advice would you give me? from your experience?
I would say embrace that ambiguity, because that creates a great opportunity for problem solving. And, us Indians are quite creative as problem solvers. So, if we think of that as a career that, I no offense to SBI, but let's say, you're thinking of a GCC like that, then it's not going to be a stable, predictable, day to day kind of a job. But it will present you with quite a lot of different kind of exposure,
Hmm.
and therefore a chance to kind of figure out new solutions, things that probably you may not have come across before, but are given the opportunity to kind of do that. So I would completely say that, that's an opportunity for somebody to embrace. The other angle in that is that if you are there at the beginning of when a GCC is being set up, that's fantastic, because it's then pretty much like how you would relate to startups nowadays, that
Yeah,
you're looking at growing from 0 to X number very soon. GCCs in those days pretty much were like that.
absolutely.
Maybe it took a little bit more number of years to get to that kind of growth, but I think today's GCCs are a little bit different, because there's the old GCC phase, there's startups, and so nowadays the GCCs that are being set up, they kind of try to marry a more rapid kind of aggressive way of growing. So if you are in one of those organizations, you don't need to be hung up on, I'm from this background and can I do this work. I
Hmm.
think there's opportunity to sort of transfer along the way as you go.
I completely agree and resonate with that because I have a very similar background to you also. So 20, 25 years in GCCs and now on my own. So we'll
Fantastic.
talk about it later.
So, Nikhil, you had a very long and successful corporate journey. I wanted
Long.
to ask you, yes.
Successful is subjective, but yeah, my way it was successful. I got a chance to do many other things. Yeah.
So, I wanted to ask you, was there a point, what was the point where you felt I want to do something different now?
Quite a lot of times, actually. Probably the earliest that I felt that was maybe somewhere in 2007. Uh, Back then, besides my job, which would kind of get taken care of 5 days a week and whatever timings, I used to assist with an organization called Landmark Education. And that's my first brush of being able to work with people in seminar formats, one on one formats. So it kind of, and my background is, my mom is a teacher, so I had always kind of heard stories. We would be in malls and suddenly parents and students are coming and greeting, so it used to be feeling, really ethereal that somebody in a teaching profession can have that kind of an effect. So I guess somewhere it was kind of subconsciously there in the background that that would be an enjoyable thing to do. So a little bit of a bug had bit in around 2007 that why not go down this track completely and do that. At that time, I didn't go in that direction, but I guess therefore it kind of bruised. So later on, it really, that opportunity again, the idea really emerged again in 2018. However, I think for me, I had always kept doing something in parallel where at that moment it was satisfying to do whatever I was doing in parallel. 2018 is where it started feeling like maybe now I should do something on my own full time. And it just so aligned that, I spoke with a friend at that time and he said, look, Nikhil, you like teaching, you like mentoring and these coaching kind of things. So pretty much look at something like that. And that was probably the sort of, first conversation I had where it felt like, okay, maybe that can be something, which becomes a profession.
I would like to pick your brain on one word or statement to use. Coaching kind of a thing. What do you mean by that?
Yeah. I actually realized this later, right?
Hmm.
When I was putting two and two together. But one of the things I realized, which unknowingly I would do, was whether it was my career at Morgan Stanley, whether it was with friends, I had realized that people would come and ask me about some things, discuss some things, and invariably go back with not necessarily an answer, but a slightly different perspective, right? And people kept coming back and they kept going back with some value. So probably something was clicking unknowingly in that process. Now, when I look at it, it looked like I was in this function or in that role or, some other division. But probably the common link for me was that I was being able to sort of figure out what people were going through, and just listen to them, and not necessarily say that, look, you should do this and that, but really check with them that I got it completely, and what do you think can happen next? What would you would like my help with? And often that kind of just patience in just sitting with them and listening with them, uh, probably that's what people felt that they should kind of. Even now, I think one of my earliest people that I coached was in 2006. I'm still in touch with her on a quite regular basis. So you
Wonderful.
could say unofficially, somebody who I coached since then is still in touch with me. So that's what probably I felt that at that time, because in 2018 I had no idea that okay, there is a profession called coaching. Yes, I had heard of therapy, but I had still not figured out the form of what I would want to get into. I just felt that instinctively there are certain things that I'd like to develop, and maybe there is, if I push it enough, if I feel convinced about it, then maybe it can turn into a profession. So in 2018 it had not formed like an idea, but it was just an inkling that maybe this is something that I'm good at.
So what is the further story from there? How did you reach to where you are now, owning your own thing?
Um, I think when I became clear that that's something which is a different direction I want to go in, then I started thinking about what kind of modality is something that I would want to go into. Interestingly, NLP is something that I had gotten introduced to in college when I was 17 years of age.
Okay.
In a nearby college, I got to know from in those days when you go to a newspaper stand to buy magazines, newspapers, there would also be these flyers that are kept. So there was one flyer like that which says in so and so college there is an introduction to NLP. So I just, along with one friend, went there. It was a, I think, 1.5 hour session. I kind of understood a few things. He mentioned Tony Robbins. After that, I didn't give it much thought. It felt like, okay, maybe it's similar to what I'm doing in Landmark. So it kind of didn't cross my mind after that. But when I was thinking of what to learn and what to get into, I felt that in today's world, pretty much many people are exposed to training, right? If you're working in an organization, in any other format, also some form of training you've been introduced to. And as a user, my common experience had been I come back from a training, there's a lot of notes, it goes into the drawer, and the drawer is wiser than me afterwards, right? So I felt that what if there's something which is experiential, which is practical, which is hands-on, and if that's something that I can present and utilize, then maybe that's more meaningful. So that's where again NLP came into the on the radar, and then I figured out, okay, yeah, maybe this is what I want to kind of push myself into, and that's from where then 2019 2019 I kind of completed a lot of my training in NLP, and then COVID happened, so I was going to start trying out kind of teaching NLP in some format, shorter format. The goal was really that maybe I will work, and on the weekends I'll teach NLP. Along the way, let's see what happens. That was the idea, but the whole lockdown situation changed everything, because now suddenly a weekend course was not possible in person. So I adapted it to what became now the online format that I utilize. And one of the things I realized was that in coming to NLP also, I realized that it is still taught in a manner of how trainings are taught. So I felt, what's the difference that I can make in this area? And interestingly, many people in my mother's side are from a musical background. So in music, you have riyaz. So I looked at how people do riyaz, and that made complete sense. That if you do riyaz of NLP, why will NLP not get imbibed in you as a skill? So my way of designing the course then was more practice oriented, less theory loaded, and it picked up because I did a couple of experiments while I was working. Ran a couple of small cohorts, more to check for myself whether I'm able to do it, but also to see whether other people find value in that. And when I got a good response for that, then I felt, okay, maybe this is something I can make something out of. So that's really how the whole thing then progressed from there.
You know, Nikhil, I would really like to come back to the music and the Riyaz and the NLP connection, right? But before that,
Very interesting.
I can definitely see you're passionate about NLP as a
Yes.
subject or as a teaching. But
Yes.
what is NLP? I mean,
Yeah.
I don't understand it also.
Good, good. I'm glad that you don't understand it. I'll give a parallel to yoga. Like if I ask someone that, look, my hand is fractured, will yoga help me in my rehabilitation? Answer will obviously be yes. But the second question I would ask is, do you need to wait till your hand gets fractured to imbibe yoga as a lifestyle? Because yoga can be reduced to a set of exercises and asanas, or it can also be imbibed as a lifestyle, right?
Hmm.
I find that NLP is kind of parallel in that way, right? NLP doesn't look at what's the problem with you and how do we fix you. NLP essentially is grounded in studying excellence, which means how can things be made to work for you? How are things working for you in one aspect of life? So
Okay.
how can we use that and transfer it to another aspect of life where you feel like you're not able to do it? So to give you a very simple example, like sometimes people will say, I'm lacking confidence uh, if I have to speak in front of a crowd.
Okay.
The interesting thing is that there is this saying which a lot of coaches use also. It's a belief of excellence from NLP. It's called, all of us have resources within us.
Hmm.
And these resources are not methods, processes, tools, frameworks. These resources are the references that we've built up over a period of time. What does confidence look like? What does it mean when I'm happy? What does it mean when I'm sad or disappointed? So it's a very clear demarker and distinction for us that, this does not mix with this. How is my body? How is my breathing? How is my demeanor? How is my tone of voice? When I'm confident, when I'm angry, when I'm sad, when I'm disappointed is distinct and different.
Okay.
So when someone says, I'd like to be confident when I'm in front of a crowd, they're already familiar with what confident looks like in some other aspect of life. Maybe they're confident in chit chatting with friends.
Hmm.
And there they don't feel the pressure that, my God, are these people going to judge me, or what is going to happen? What's going to come out of my mouth? Situations are very different actually. I'm speaking with friends, I'm speaking in front of unknown people.
Hmm.
Can we then take how easily you're able to access confidence there and bring it into this situation where I'll say I'm not able to access confidence that easily? So if I say that confidence, ease, being relaxed, calm, if I said that these are like library books, some are outside my reach, some are within my reach. In some
Okay.
situations, I can easily reach out to a book. In other situations, I probably need a stool or a ladder to reach there. So NLP is a way of figuring out what you're feeling right now. If that's something that's missing, where is it available somewhere else in your life that I can bring it from there and make it available for you here? And that's in essence how NLP works. Now you could look at it as varied amount of things, right? It could be about abilities. So I was once doing a workshop for women returning to back to the workforce, and one I said, who has a challenge saying no? So 3 4 people put their hand up. I said, okay, really, who has a challenge saying no? Some more people put their hand up. So I put out a chair in front of me and I said, okay, I need one volunteer. So one person came and I said, okay, I want you to stand up on this chair now. So she said, no, I'll not be able to stand up on this chair. I said, it's okay, I'll hold the chair, it will not be wobbly. No, no, I'll not be able to stand up on this chair. So I said, how come you're being able to tell me no now?
Okay.
And for a moment, there was a twinkle in her eye. Then she said, okay, should I stand up? I said, well, have you figured it out how to say no? So she said, yeah, I think I have. And all that we're doing is we're saying that you can say no in one context.
Hmm.
How about paying attention to how are you able to say no in that context? And you'll then be able to figure out how to say no in the other context. So it's about being able to transfer these resources, which anyway are within us, and then utilizing them in a situation which is crucial or important for us. And then behind this is a plethora of tools, methods, techniques. All of that is just an excuse to transfer excellence from one place of your life to another part of your life. Now, whether you want to be an excellent parent, coach, whatever it is, you choose.
No, absolutely. So, as you were speaking, right, I kind of went back thinking about so the ICF principles
Competencies.
or the competencies. It sounded a little similar to me. right?
Right.
How do you differentiate on, while you're coaching, is NLP a tool that you use, or does it kind of complement each other? So how's that distinction or correlation work?
Right. So Richard Bandler, one of the co-founders of NLP, said NLP is an attitude which leaves behind a trail of methodologies and tools.
Okay.
So here's an interesting thing, right? I mean, these guys, now we can say they came up with NLP. But actually, their quest was not to discover something called NLP and then say, here is NLP to the world.
Hmm.
They were at that time Gestalt therapists. So they were looking at who are the people around us right now who are really good Gestalt therapists. And they found a couple of people. That got them curious and thinking that how come these people are so good and the other people are not as effective?
Hmm.
It took them on a 6-7 month journey and they shadowed these people and they literally mimicked and copied everything that they did and the way they did. Strangely, they found that even just by mimicking the style, the tone, the approach, they were able to have some good results with clients. So
Okay.
then that got them more curious that how come, what is going on that we are able to do it this way even though we are not them. That's where someone called John Grinder came in. He was a linguist. Uh, so looked at things like grammar of language, some specialized in something called transformational grammar.
Okay.
And he said, let me sit at the back and notice what you're doing. And if it makes sense, then I'll be able to tell you what's happening.
Hmm.
So he sat back and then he came back to them and he said, here's what you're doing. And this is the reason why it's working. So here it is. And by now, watching you doing it, I think I'll also be able to do it. So then next couple of times he did work with clients and he was able to realize that, yeah, even I'm being able to do it. So it was a revelation that if you actually look at performance of human beings in any field in which they are excellent, it's a little bit subjective. That one tennis player, how come they are good at something versus the other tennis player is very subjective. From the looks of it, it looks like forehand is good, backhand is good. But what are specific small things that are happening, which are invisible as well, not just the visible things, that can be coded and replicated and transferred? Then that became the discipline called modeling. And that's where then this word model came, that there is this model in NLP, there is that tool in NLP. So originally, the quest was not to create tools. The quest was, can we figure out a way of replicating excellence? But replicating excellence was not enough because if it cannot be transferred to someone else, how is it useful to others?
Correct.
So modeling became a vehicle that it created a language for how can I pick excellence? How can I extract it? How can I translate it into a grammar and a syntax so that I can teach it to someone else and then they can imbibe it and also produce a similar performance in their context? So when I run my master practitioner course, the essence is focused on how to teach people behavioral modeling skills. So we had somebody who was a theater artist, and prior to that, like about 64 hours of smaller modeling skills I had taught my students. The
Okay.
test for them in the 7 days in-person kind of integration was to be introduced to a person who is good at one skill, having never met them, and spending the 7 days to be able to imbibe the skills just like that person.
Hmm.
So first day she did a performance using Navarasas, and I said, well, this is your assignment. This is the kind of performance I want from all of you on the 7th day. But the manner in which we had constructed this was giving them the language and the vocabulary that how can you decode this performance and how can you figure out ways of accessing it on your own and applying it and practicing it on your own. And then the last day's performances were so fabulous that this friend said, I've been teaching theater for many years, but I've never seen in a span of 6 days people come up with this level of performances, right? So it was a
Wow.
nice discovery for people, but it was also a test that that is how modeling can be effective. That if you idealize someone, if you feel that there's a behavior that I'd like to imbibe, NLP gives you the language, vocabulary, syntax, and grammar to extract that, recognize it, and make it into a translatable, implementable, practical form that then you can imbibe new skills.
No, interesting. I think
Yeah.
I find that my knowledge about NLP was quite nascent, but I think this has really been an eye opener. Thank you for that.
Nikhil, it's very insightful what you just shared with us. I would like you to expand the NLP for the
What?
listeners,
Sure.
and also the fact that when you mentioned what I understand is that it is like observing words and attitude.
Beautiful.
Those are
Yes.
two things that I picked up from what you said. Can you also expand on that a bit?
Sure. So NLP, in the time that I started, the first student that signed up thought that it's a natural language processing course. So was an ex-colleague from Morgan Stanley. So I had to tell him, sorry, this is not that course. So let me just clarify that it is not natural language processing. It is neuro-linguistic programming, right?
Did you
And
stay on or did you drop out?
no, he dropped out.
Oh, just curious.
Well, maybe he was very focused on riding
Yeah,
the AI and ML wave. So
absolutely.
I said, okay, cool. Uh, so neuro linguistic programming, that's a mouthful of a description. If you had to simplify it, you could just say modeling successful behaviors, right? Now I use this word syntax, vocabulary, grammar, uh, and the reason for that is that the manner in which we communicate is not really using words alone. I mean, imagine, right? If a very strict principal, or if your mom and you've done something that she doesn't approve, she might say in a particular way that is not in the way you think it is, right? So that means there is a language that is being used which is without words, and therefore how do we pick up on that language? There is a grammar for that language also, right? How do we move our eyes? Even a simple thing like this, if I'm doing, what does it really mean in terms of a gesture? And I'll clarify very quickly that we are not interpreting body language, right? So let's get that out of the way. You use the word observation, Roshni, right? So let me expand a little bit on that.
Hmm.
I would say that what we do in NLP is calibrate, right? And calibrate really alludes to the manner in which it is used in school laboratories, that it's a precise, uh, sensory grounded way of noticing that if this is 15 ml, it is 15 ml. It is not roughly half size of the beaker. So that's not how chemistry experiments happen, right? It's very precise what you can observe. So is it observable is the first thing. And so what is observable then needs to be learned, because there are many things which are observable. It's just that we've not paid attention to that, right? Um, I'll give you a very different example. If we were thinking of music, I like to keep going to music examples. Maybe I'll use food examples a little bit later. But let's say we are listening to a song by the Beatles, or we are listening to a song by Kishore Kumar. Some of us might say, okay, that's a Kishore Kumar song. Yes, that's a Beatles song. Some of us might know the lyrics. Some of us might be able to say, I think it's an acoustic guitar along with a rhythm guitar. Some of us might say, the scale is this and the pitch is this, or Kishore Kumar is singing in this rather, and this is the tal, this much is the beat cycle. All of us are picking it up in the same way, but in our own way. So that means it's the same thing, it's the song. The level of richness that you can pick up is up to you. Now, how well your ears are trained is up to you. So there's a phrase that we use called sensory acuity, which means what's the level of sharpness with which we can use our senses. So you can use our eyes to a certain level of acuity. You can use your sense of taste, visualization, feelings, balance, all of these things. And if you're able to pay attention all of these things in the manner in which another person is communicating with you, you tend to pick up much more than what is being said. And when you tend to pick up what is being said and that what is not being said, by the way, try replicating a sneeze. We can't, right? So we can't say that I am now going to blink my left eye this way and right eye that way. We can't sneeze on command. So things that we do unconsciously are then more reliable as a response if I want to gauge it, because I can craft the words that I want to use. So if you look at a lot of media interviews, they are very well trained. You look at 6 interviews, and when the movie is released, they are saying pretty much the same things, right? So rarely will you get like a off the cuff kind of a reaction. But unconscious, non-verbal responses are very telltale giveaways of what's going on with the person. So if you're able to pick this up as a vocabulary, which means now your vocabulary is expanding to the manner in which I'm saying something and the inflection of the tone and the volume Now, this is going to convey different kind of emotions and feelings. So if I call up a friend and my friend says hello, from that hello I can make out, right? Today I don't think you're sounding good. Are you not well? Or today you're looking, hey, hello, Roshni. My my God, do you have something nice to share with me? I don't need to say that, right? Roshni, did you know I have something exciting to share with you today? Can you sense my excitement? I don't need to say that. But you were able to pick this up because as a listener of that language, there are some natural intuitions you've developed which allow you to pick up on this. But somehow we're not trained to notice this and utilize this. So NLP allows us to kind of observe this, pick it up without giving it meaning. And then when you start noticing these things, you can put together some patterns. And once you start seeing things in patterns, you can say, doesn't matter what the person is saying, I'm able to notice the pattern. So maybe then there's a reliable way I know how this person is going to conduct themselves.
Wow.
Wow. So, Nikhil, don't be surprised if you get a call from me for a one-on-one chat later, right?
I would love to.
So, I'm going to, Roshni, with your permission, I'm going to shift focus for a minute now. So, Morgan Stanley, corporate career, been there, done that. How did Tree Society happen? I believe you're doing some very interesting work with rural entrepreneurs, right?
Yes, rural entrepreneurs. So actually, a friend of mine, along with a senior person in Morgan Stanley that time, 2010, 2011, they had already started Tree Society.
Okay.
And this friend of mine now at that time used to conduct trainings in Morgan Stanley. So one of the days they came and said, something like this we are starting. And if anyone's interested in doing this, please raise your hand. I remember raising my hand, but somehow I didn't get a call.
Huh.
Then 2015, this person was again doing a training and I was in the training. And he was about to introduce himself. And I said, yeah, and I know you're involved in this and I know you're in this business. So he said, how did you know? So I said, remember in 2010, I had raised my hand and I wanted to do this. So he said, oh, did you? So 2015, there was some other program that they were going to run. So he said, well, if you are still interested, why don't you come next week? We are doing something. They happened to be doing something in Maharashtra that time. So it was at Lonavala, quite near where I am. And he said, just come and observe that. If you feel like that is something you'd enjoy doing, you'd love to do, then we can start talking. So I went and attended and I liked it. They were teaching finance. I had taught my MBA engineering friends, I had taught finance at that time. So I thought, okay, this is straightforward, but I know that I need to tweak it to speaking in Hindi and speaking in Marathi and making the examples simpler, making sentences smaller. So I figured that out. And thoda sa that time the landmark training had helped because I used to conduct programs for people. So teaching people was not a big deal, but I was just kind of readjusting to the subject that had to be taught. And I think on the second or third day, he said, Chalo, why don't you do this next session? It's on profitability and this and that. So I went and did that. And an interesting thing happened because I think it was about 35 people and maybe 5 gents. The others were ladies. And on the last day, when we finished the training, one person who was quite elder to me came and touched my feet. So this friend of mine said, that's good feedback that, what the way you're teaching resonates with them. So then I pretty much said, yes, whenever that chance comes. We used to have a volunteering kind of a program in Morgan Stanley, but I was dissatisfied with it because it used to be 1 month in a year. And I said, if you want to do this, you should do it regularly, right? So I found that this was a good channel to keep doing it regularly. So I would actually take leave for 5-6 days and go away. Then after Maharashtra, I think I went and did it in Gujarat. Then Rajasthan was the next one. And then eventually, several other states. The interesting thing used to be that Maharashtra, Gujarat, Rajasthan was manageable because it was still Marathi, Gujarati, Hindi, English I could manage. But essentially, our slides used to be half in English and the other half in the local language of where we are.
Okay.
So, for example, once when I went to Andhra, it was like I'm saying this in English, then I'm waiting. Then the translator is saying it in Telugu. If they have a question, it comes back in Telugu. Then I answer in English. So that's the way it used to be in, for example, I think Tamil Nadu, it was like that because I'm not fluent in Tamil. But largely I think Jharkhand, Rajasthan, Madhya Pradesh, these places I managed because Hindi I could manage. English I could manage. Marathi, Gujarati, if you are born in Bombay, Marathi, Gujarati you can manage. And then I think it was also within a context, so it didn't feel like it's alien at all.
Mm.
And yeah, so it was very exciting stuff to do. People used to be very excited because for them it was like a life and death thing, right? That I'm going to be able to take this and wow, something will allow me to earn more money now. All of these people were farmers, but they were looking at non-farm incomes, which means in the off season, can I
Okay.
open a shop and earn some money, right? The
Ah.
difficulty used to be that, let's say you have a tea shop and I thought that, okay, even I can start a tea shop. Now, what if my tea shop now doesn't function, but I've taken a loan from the money lender?
Mm.
Now, interest rates in rural India can be very high.
Yeah.
So it can be like, if I borrow 100 from you, the money lender will say, okay, every month for the next 1 year, just return 10 rupees at a time. And at the end, you can pay 100 back.
Yeah.
So now if you add it up, you'll realize that, it is 120 plus 100. So one of the reasons why this was started is to make these rural entrepreneurs aware of what to not fall into as a trap. So our training was focused on enabling them, but it was also focused on helping them figure out whether this is viable or not. So
Mm.
there would be operations, there would be marketing, there would be finance, and in the end, the aim was that something like a basic business plan, if they're able to make it, it allows them access to funds from the self-help groups, local banks. So that was really the basis on which, and had a thrill sort of, I got a chance to travel all over India for that because my Morgan Stanley exposure had taken me, maybe to London, New York, Hong Kong, and
Yeah.
Tokyo. But this was a different kind of a exposure, and I really loved it because being able to go and do that kind of work was very satisfying piece of, part of my life at that time.
That's
Oh,
very
interesting. I think.
interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, interesting part of your life that you shared. I'm just curious there. Like you, of course, you brought in that language could be a thing that can come between when you are working with rural population. But
Yes.
other than that, how is it different? Like training at a corporate level and training with a rural population. I'm very curious to know that.
Uh, I would say if you go and teach even in a school, or if you go into the rural areas, I think the hunger is more,
Mm.
much more. And so the satisfaction that you can get that I've taught this, I've poured myself into this 100%, and these people have taken away 200% out of whatever I've given them, and how much eager they are to take that back and put it into practice, because for them that is a matter of life and death. At the most, let's say sometimes in a company I may do a training and a session, and I don't know if they're going to kind of use that because I'm not going to be there. So you notice different levels of interest when I'm doing this in organizations, but when I'm doing it in the now I do with certain NGOs also. But certainly in that space there is a lot more hunger, and because that's not something that's easily accessible to them, right? So it's a big deal that at least somebody from a city and from an educated background is coming, spending time with us, is willing to stay with us, teaching us so many things, because these things would be across 6 months. So you'd go in 1 month and then again another month, and now you start knowing them. So some of them we are again meeting them at the end of the year, and it's interesting how some of them initially they were wanting to be entrepreneurs, then they became entrepreneurs, then they became mentors to others who wanted to be rural entrepreneurs, then now they become like trainers in their own right. So it's nice to see that kind of change happen over a course of time. It is a multi-year journey, but it's a highly satisfying thing to be involved in.
And I guess you're getting the feedback like uh, very really, like very active feedback in a way, even if it is taking time. You are actually seeing them empower other people in a way.
And I mean, the feedback in the classroom is also pretty straightforward. Like I remember once we had gone and we were doing this training for, was a it was a farmer cooperative. Basically, they were, they had a collective of different crops that were being grown by these farmers. They had formed their own association, which was a farming association and a marketing association, basically like a producer company and a marketing company. So the producer company produces the grains, and the marketing company markets it, whether it is in cities, fairs, etc. So they had appointed amongst themselves a new board of directors.
Okay.
meaning by rotation a new set of farmers. So we had gone to do this kind of a training, that little bit business orientation should be there. So in the first half an hour we said farming is also a business, and immediately there was like a revolt in the room because the connotation of business was that it is something negative, unfair, evil almost. So they were like, how can you say farming is a business? And we got that feedback, and then it was kind of this translation is going on, but from their tone and their demeanor you can make out that I hope I don't say something wrong because I might get pulverized here. But that kind of instant feedback will be there, right? Because there's no shyness or coyness that I'll think about it later. It's they treat it like they've left their families behind. And I remember in Rajasthan when I was doing this, if yeah, there was no male. I think maybe two people were men. Rest of them were women. Three of them had infants, but they had left from wherever village they were in, and they had come to Jaipur to next 5 days they are going to spend there.
Oh,
And the state association had, basically it was like a cooperative training center. So they had booked a adjoining room in which there were mattresses, and they had hired a nanny for the 5 days, so that these infants could be taken care of and taken care of in the room next to them. The ladies and everyone, all the participants could take care of focusing on the program. So I mean, that's the kind of responsiveness that was there from the other side. So that was kind of more shorter immediate feedback, but yeah, the longer feedback was also that we would always go back, and sometimes we would see familiar faces and they would say, sir, that time when you had come, see, now I'm doing this business. And the other interesting thing would be like you would get some freebies, like somebody's got pickles and papad and whatnot,
Wow.
whatever it is that their produces, they've brought it as a token of appreciation. So the feedback was immediate, and also it was long term, both ways.
quite fulfilling, I must say.
Very fulfilling, yeah.
So, Nikhil, you trained corporates, you trained rural entrepreneurs, and Roshni's already brought that up.
Yeah.
Which is more challenging, or which situation can you recall any situation which was the most challenging, either in corporates or rural entrepreneurs?
I think first I'll kind of go by one of the things that my mentor says. That he says that there's no challenging situation or a challenging participant or a challenging client. There's only an inflexible trainer or an inflexible coach.
Okay.
So let's kind of that's where I think of it as. What you could say is a challenge, then the perspective changes, because we kind of I remember one particular one where I was doing it in one of the banks. It was like so by the way, I also sometimes teach economics and finance with a friend of mine because I like doing that. And when I left Morgan Stanley, he said, what's the use of being in Morgan Stanley all this while? So on one such occasion I was going to teach macroeconomics and finance to a class of newly hired tech grads.
Okay.
So they need to now be taught that this is a business you are in and this is the environment, right? So I was told 2 days earlier that a couple of people in that are visually challenged and some speech impairment is there. So I said, okay, thanks for letting me know. I'll keep that in mind. And so a couple of them, I think, in their childhood had polio or something. So there was a mobility issue. But one participant, vision was impaired. So she had a laptop with the magnifier on and my slide deck on it, because I was going to show it there in a room, but she had a PC in front of her. There was a speech impediment because words didn't come out very clearly. So you had to really pay attention and figure out that what are the specific words that are being said, and the pace was very slow. So I realized that, okay, this is a participant that I need to kind of pay attention to. But when I entered there, I realized that already this is a class of new people, newly out of college, and I could sense a sort of separation that, gosh, now somebody has to help, and, everything will be slowed down. That kind of sense I could pick up when I entered the room. So I went and loaded up everything, and then I stood next to this person, and I said, like, how do you want me to kind of work with you? So she said, yeah, I have this loaded on the PC, and I'll listen to what you're saying. I said, cool. So I said, okay, let's do a deal. The moment you feel you don't know anything, you just raise your hand, and I don't want you to think about I will ask this later.
Hmm.
And so some of the people that were communicating with her, they were writing down on a piece of paper, and they were saying, oh, this is what you mean, theek hai, theek hai. So I found that a little bit odd, that theek hai, now that's the thing that that person has gotten getting used to. So I said, as immediately the moment you feel there is a doubt, you stop me and you just raise your hand, and I'll stop and I'll answer your question. What made it easier for me is because now I'm teaching something. When this is being said, she's raising her hand. So it made it clearer for me that what's the context in which she's asking at the very least, even if the words are not very clear. So if there are 10 words being used in a sentence, if I pick up 2 or 3 words, I'll be able to figure out what's the broad question. So I use that approach, and then I would replay it back to her that, are you saying you want to know more about this? And she would say yes. And she was very clear in her, like very confident also. But obviously, the impediment would kind of come in the way of how quickly she could communicate. So whenever she said yes, it was a very like a judge's hammer kind of a yes. So I said, okay, good. So let me explain. And then I would explain, and I would say that that's a good question what she has asked. So now the others are not thinking, oh my God, now she's asked a question. Now we have to wait till Nikhil answers her. So I try to make it in such a way that it's not her doubt. She's asking it, but hey, some of you could have this doubt for yourself also. So let's be attentive when I'm answering her question, because it might answer a question for you as well. And when it went along like that, I felt that in a way it was making the others used to the idea that please start thinking of her as part of your group, because I'm just doing this training and going away. You have to kind of work with her on a regular basis. So that I would say was probably a tricky situation.
Okay.
But thankfully, a little bit of NLP helped, and I was able to figure out what's a good way to communicate with her.
Very interesting, Nikhil, to see that. And here I also want to ask you this question, since NLP is based on observation, and when you shared this story, I could, before you even mention, I could see you were trying to apply the same thing.
Yeah.
Does it work like with people with different kinds of impairment? Can
Yeah.
NLP work for them too?
Yeah. Because it's a little bit like this, right? I mean, first we've got to get used to moving away from this word normal, because too much of glorification happens when we bring in this word. So if somebody didn't have a left hand and you're talking to them, would you talk to them differently? So
No.
then somebody doesn't have one eye, or doesn't have eyesight in one of their eyes, or somebody is just hard of hearing, doesn't mean that you could blindfold me and I'll probably be in the same state as them. And therefore it's about recognizing that what are things that function about them, and how can I use what functions about them to communicate with them. Why do I need to focus on what doesn't function? Because in me also, maybe in another 20 years I might become hard of hearing. So what functions about this person that I can use to be in rapport and communication with them? If the other person is able to see that I'm making that effort, then they make that effort to also communicate with me, because for them I'm a different species. So it's no different, right? It's a little bit like it's like somebody speaking with me in Malayalam. I don't know Malayalam, and let's say I'm speaking in Marathi and they don't know Marathi, and neither of us know English or Hindi. Then we'll have to make sign to each other, signal, play dumb charade, something like that, right? So I feel that too much of emphasis is given to what is the realm of normal, and what that means is we've handicapped ourselves in our ability of communicating with a wider range of people, right? So they're not the handicapped people, if we want to call them that, but we've sort of limited ourselves in terms of how we can communicate with people. So look at them for what they have, and how can you use that for talking to them. I remember this nice example which one of the co-developers of NLP, his name is Frank Puchelik. done a lot of work with alcoholic, substance abuse, people with extreme, difficulties psychologically. So he had once gone to a conference of doctors in somewhere in Russia, and after he gave his speech, some doctors came and said, "We'd like you to come to this mental institution. There's a particular patient we want you to have a look at." So he went to the place, and it had like a conference hall, and his words are that if it were not for the uniform of the doctors there, from the look of their faces, I wouldn't have known who's the patient and who's the doctor. Right. So that's a different thing for another time. So he went and sat on the opposite side, and they said, "This is the patient." And throughout this interaction, he did not utter a word. All he did was kept his focus on this other person and noticed them in a very acute manner, that what's really going on right now. And he realized that he was very quiet, but in between he was doing this, like somebody's playing an invisible guitar. So he picked that up and he looked at him and he said, still no use of words. So when he did that, he realized that there's a small smile that has now come on his face. So he said, "Okay, my work is done. Give this man a guitar and you'll find out what he's about."
Okay.
And pretty much very soon he was out of that institution, because people were not looking at him for what he was, rather than trying to think of what parameter, what category of our illnesses that we know does he fit in, therefore what's the medication that we must give him, right? But that's a very simple example of, if you're really paying attention like that, you can pick up on what is being said, even if they don't say using words.
So powerful, right?
So, Nikhil, I'm
And,
going
and,
to
and, and I want to clarify that, I don't want to sweep it aside by saying that it's magical, mystical, mysterious, because I'm saying these are things that can be learned. And
Yes.
I've learned it in 2019, and I'm being able to practice it. I just practice it every day. So it's not even about the quantity of years that you need to practice it. That's why I like the example of musical riyaz. So one of my uncles, who's about now 90, musician, he's just, he'll say that the truck went like this and dhadam dhudum, that sound came on the road, and that is this tal. So if you start looking at it like that, then, well, you'll be practicing all the time. Then why would your skills not be sharp?
Beautiful. So, Nikhil, I'm going to kind of spice things up a little bit, right?
Okay.
I'm going to do a rapid fire round.
Ouch.
And then I'm going to ask you a very challenging question. Hopefully, I don't
right.
know, it might be easy for you.
Cool.
But good to go? Good to start?
Yes.
Okay, so what's one corporate buzzword you have officially banned from your coaching sessions?
I don't use any corporate buzzwords at all.
So from your client side, what's one word that you don't allow them to say?
What they use, we'll take this offline.
Okay. Coffee or tea? What's your favorite?
Good coffee and good tea. So I'm kind of impartial to both. But
Okay.
depends. If I'm in Bangalore, I would absolutely go for coffee. If I'm
Okay.
at home, I prefer chai, because my home chai is my kind of chai.
Brilliant. I'm assuming that you may not be so good at Excel, so that's a please assumption. Go along with it. So what's
I'll also
harder
assume.
Okay, fantastic. So what's harder to decode, an complicated Excel pivot table or someone's limiting beliefs?
Neither. People are, I think, much easier to figure out. Pivot tables, probably if somebody else has made it, then I'll have to unreverse it or something and then figure out. I would say, yeah, people are easier to work with and figure out.
Okay. What is the most, how do I put it, the most NLP thing you have done at maybe dinner time with your family?
So now the interesting thing is, my daughter and wife are trained in NLP. And so, however, the conversations that we have around dinner table are, we don't really use jargon. But it's like, it's like if all of us loved singing songs, we would play Antakshari. So I can
Okay.
say that that's how it ends up being, right? That my daughter will say, I know you're doing something with me right now. And I'll say, yeah, maybe I am, but you're not letting me. And so we kind of literally just play around like that. My son isn't trained, but he's what youngsters are. They're very sharp. So he'll say, I know what you're trying to do, and I'm not going to fall for it. so
Brilliant.
the so the most NLP thing that we do is we don't use NLP jargon at home, but we just
Okay.
try to create the effect of what it can do with each other.
All right. So my last question to you, and I hope it's a challenging one because I think it's
No, I thought
challenging.
this one was challenging.
No, 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 no. This was rapid fire.
Got
So
it.
through our conversation, I've seen what do I say? Four personas of Nikhil. Okay, one is the corporate Nikhil, Morgan Stanley, right? Second is the NLP practitioner coach Nikhil, right? The third is the coach, the executive coach Nikhil, and the fourth is Nikhil who does who's involved with all the social work,
Right,
entrepreneurs, rural entrepreneurs.
right,
If today I was to ask you to choose one of them and only one of them to continue for the rest of your life,
right.
which one would that be?
Which particular role?
Yes, you can
I
choose
think
only one.
I think as a practitioner of NLP, because that allows me to seamlessly weave into wherever I want to go.
Ah, so in a way, you're not going to let go of anything.
Nothing. I mean, why restrict yourself to anything?
Okay,
But
all
yeah, I
right.
found that practicing NLP allows me. Like I've used it even when I learned swimming. So you can pretty much go and play with it wherever you want. So I would be in favor of that.
All right. So my quest of a challenging question did not become challenging, but hats off to you for that. So
Nikhil, I wanted to ask you. So, you've dedicated yourself to enabling transformation. What kind of change are you personally hungry to see in the world?
Uh, People just being sensible to each other in the people that they are surrounded by. Um Not to get too much swayed with what is being said by people that don't even concern them, and just sort of using their own head around what makes sense to them, right? Because a lot of times, especially in today's world, with so much information being available, so much misinformation being available, uh, I'd really like people to be a little bit more. It'll sound very odd, but I'll explain. I'd really like people to be a little bit more self-focused,
hmm,
right? And I think even for somebody who says they are selfish, I don't think they've really thought about it clearly. Because if I say that, uh, and I'll use a very different example, right? There's a political rally, and there's a leader who's going to come and give a speech. So all of you get 500 rupees to come and attend that rally, so that we can show that that rally is really full. So are these individuals thinking for themselves? And to what end does going there serve their purpose? So I would wish that people want kind of more for themselves, because if they want more for themselves, they'll realize very soon that working with each other's differences is far more productive than trying to fight each other's differences. So whether that's some, and school children are able to figure it out very easily, right? So I often in my courses I tell people that we are all ex-children. We just need to figure out a way of acting like children again, because they seem to have a very good handle on how to make things work for themselves. So something is not happening right, that we are turning from children into adults and going from functional to dysfunctional. So I'd really want that people pay attention to what works for them, be not too obsessed about what works for others, and let that difference be as a difference, right? We can always agree that you like fish, I like chicken, or the other person doesn't like non-veg at all, and it's okay. We can all kind of coexist and have food together. So I think transformation is a very big word, but on a daily basis, if you are thinking about how can I make life work for me and the bunch of people that come in contact with me, then I think it will be a far better place to hang around.
So, I am curious about Iridium, right? It's a coaching venture. What is the story behind the name? Sounds like some sci-fi film title.
I can give credit to that. That much is the only thing that I picked up when I was learning chemistry in school. uh, the name actually has a strange kind of connection. Even when I was at Morgan Stanley, and we were part of some emerging leaders program, and they said there's going to be a project and there's going to be a group. So everyone was kind of calling it Project A, Project B, Project C. So I said this sounds like a Jackie Chan movie and its sequels. So I said let's give it some proper name, and for some reason at that time I came up with Iridium, because it felt like, yeah, Iridium is a nice word. It's actually a catalyst, and so that kind of stuck in my head that we're going to do something which is transformational here. And so many years later, actually, Iridium was probably the 11th or 12th choice of name for the company, because if you're setting up a company, you have to do a name search.
Yeah.
And I kept giving names, and they said, no, this name is taken. Then I gave another name. Like this, 11, 12 things happened. And 13th name, I just felt, forget it, I think I'll just go with Iridium. And I hope, because I remembered Iridium was also a satellite phone company. So I thought, I hope they don't have a presence and this name doesn't get rejected. But as I thought about it more, when I thought about the qualities of what Iridium as an element does, the reason why it's a catalyst is it's able to withstand high temperature. It's sort of not affected by corrosion, high temperatures, and therefore it's a very useful element in forging alloys. So it's used in making precision instruments. It's used in aerospace kind of parts. So it's a very specialized kind of a catalyst. And I thought, what better kind of parallel to have for this than the work that I'm going to do? Because people or organizations are also going through change. And change can be unfamiliar, it can be uncertain, it can be frightening. So how can change be made comfortable and easy is really where that name came from. So that's where I felt, and in a certain way, if light shines on the salts of iridium, it kind of emits like a multicolored thing. So it's also like a rainbow. So I'm a very I love metaphors. So it kind of represents for me that when given different colors, it can be parallel to creating different choices and possibilities for my clients. Taking them through heat and noise and this and that is the same as what we say creating a safe space, and them going from one thing to emerging as a stronger version of themselves is also something that's happening in the process. So that's where the iridium name came in, and it's kind of just sometimes you say, right, things just come together, so it just kind of just happened like that.
Beautiful, beautiful name.
Yeah, seriously. I mean, so much of thought and so much of reflection behind the name is, and then you started off by, I don't know, I got a feeling of it being so casual when you started off explaining, but then the depth of what has gone behind it is simply outstanding.
And also the fact that it kind of encompassed the whole discussion we had
Yeah,
around
I know.
yeah, it's beautiful. Any dreams or experiments on the horizon for you or iridium?
Experiments quite a lot, yes, because I think one, okay, you can say, when you ask me that question about aims and aspirations, one aim is really to uh, take NLP forward. And therefore, again, I'm going to bring up a musical reference, because uh, John Grinder, who kind of co-created this, said that he likened it to the well. The well has a lot of water. So if you are thirsty, then you will go and draw water from it. So he says NLP is like a well. And a lot of things that got invented in the 70s and 80s are still being used because people are thirsty. But very soon the well will run out if no new water is added. So my endeavor is that NLP has to be taken forward from where it is. Otherwise, it's like a dying language. It'll die on its own because it'll not have today's relevance. So I'm keen that it gets put in places where there are different aspects of life. And, everybody does not need to learn NLP as how NLP is taught. So therefore, my endeavor when I teach my students is that if you are one in 100 in your community who has learned NLP, then the ripple effect of you learning NLP should be felt by those who are around you. So if you're a doctor, how would you use NLP with your patients? If you're a teacher, how would you use that? If you are a salesperson, how would you use that? And if you really pushed NLP into different aspects of life, then how it can be utilized and practiced by people, itself will make a big difference for their quality of life and their way of looking at things. So I think of it as, in the 60s and 70s, Indian classical music, the sort of, very staunch followers of that, they said, well, audience is changing now, right? So there's no point in playing in front of this audience. But thankfully that didn't happen, because otherwise nobody would have gone to the concerts anymore. Some people like Ustad Ravi Shankar, Pandit Ravi Shankar, Ustad Allah Rakha Khan, Ustad Ali Akbar Khan, they thought that, we have to go to people and talk to them in their language. And so that's where popularity of classical Indian music again increased, so much so that then it's still alive. So I feel like NLP has to be sort of taken to where people exist, in the situations that they exist in. And it's my job to kind of show people the relevance of how it is applicable in where they are, and not to look at it as something which is useful only in therapy and in sales or like that, right? So there's many other dimensions of NLP yet to be explored. So that's really a personal aim.
Yeah.
And I think this what you're saying now just takes me back to the start of our conversation, where you said, to explain NLP, I'll draw a parallel to yoga.
Yeah.
It's not for when you have an issue, but it's a way of life.
Yes, it's a way of life, 100%.
Perfect. Roshni?
Yeah, just
I think
thank you
yeah.
for this very powerful, insightful, peep into the world of NLP and everything that you do. It was a very, very interesting conversations, and I think your stories kind of brought everything so alive. I think I'm gonna keep those stories for a long time with me. Yeah.
They're yours
No,
now.
Nikhil, I can confess to something. So I've been in this coaching journey for some time now, and I've heard a
Yes.
lot, right? NLP, and
Yeah.
every time some conversation comes up, people bring up these various different dimensions. That, do I need NLP? Do I need to be this certified, that certified, and all of that?
Yeah.
I think, but today was the first time I've actually understood what NLP is,
I'm glad.
and I'm going to kind of separate it from the tools and the assessments that it gets clubbed
Yeah.
together with.
Yeah.
I think it's more of a lifestyle. It's more of a,
It's a
I mean,
process. Yeah.
as we used to say in corporates, it's BAU.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah. Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
wonderful.
It can be BAU. If you choose to make it BAU, it can. Yeah.
Like at your dinner table, it's BAU.
Correct. Absolutely.
Kids
Absolutely.
are smart, that you can't do anything about, but it's BAU. Perfect.
Exactly.
So yeah, great. So thank you so much, Nikhil. Again, I'll
No,
just
it's been
echo
my
on Roshni's
pleasure.
thoughts
It's been
that
my pleasure. All these questions made me think a little bit differently, and I hope I've done justice to my aim in a very small way, in just sharing a little bit more about NLP with you and about my journey.
Absolutely,
no,
absolutely.
absolutely.
Thank
I
you
think
so much.
Alrighty then.